Oh, okay, we're live. Good morning, and welcome everybody to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm Samantha Studebaker-Carl coming at you from beautiful Southwest Georgia, and I'm here with my good friends Catherine, Sandy, and Vicki. And Jason is going to jump on here just in a few moments. He's rebooting his computer, but he'll be on shortly. And today we're going to be talking about. We're going to be going into Chapter 1 of How to Win Friends and Influence People in the Digital Age by Dale Carnegie. And if you don't have this book, there's a link on our event page where you can get it for like $4 and change over at Amazon. I found like the cheapest versions of it, and you can get it over there. Of course, they have it on Google Play and they have it on Kindle and that sort of thing. So if you feel like getting it that way, then obviously go do that. But I went and I looked everywhere to see if I could find a free digital copy of it, and there was a no-go. I guess the book's just too new still. So anyway, good morning, Jason. Glad to have you on. Good. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and start by letting everybody introduce themselves, and while we're doing that, how about you introduce yourself out there on our Google Plus page? Just post, hey, let us know if you've been hanging out with us before or if this is your first time, and then also if you have not already joined our Google Plus community, visit mindsetmasterycollective.com. And again, you'll see the link to that in the description, just on the, what side of the page is the right side of the page. You can look in the description, you can link to the book, you can link to our community, you can link to the replays of our previous Saturday Morning Masterminds. And okay, so I'm going to let Vicki take it away.
Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. I was having trouble getting my mouse to go over the unmute area. So wow. Like I say, I'm Vicki DeVore, and I'm coming to you from Houston, Texas, and I'm just glad to be here. And I'm kind of looking forward to getting into this, how to win friends and influence people in the digital age, and maybe they've got something in there on how we can also work around the technology challenges when they happen. But anyway, good morning, everybody, and like I say, thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Sandy Root here in Miami, Florida, and yeah, excited to go through this book. I've been through it once before, and it's definitely one of those books that you want to read again. I think I'll get even more out of it this time, so excited to start.
Yeah.
Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Jason Roberts over on the west coast of Florida here. Hope everyone's having a super Saturday morning, and eager to learn more about good ways of communicating in our businesses today. Great to see you all.
My mic isn't working.
Well, I can hear you okay.
Can you?
Sure.
Interesting. It says that it's muted on my end. Well, so good morning. My name's Catherine Clement, and I'm in Boulder, Colorado. And I'm also looking forward to getting through this book. I finally got my copy this week, the Kindle version. I did find it. And I know it's, actually I'm studying this book in another group as well, so I know it's a good one. So I look forward to sharing some of the concepts with you. Thank you for coming.
Great.
Awesome. I didn't realize you were studying it in another group, Catherine. Excellent. So that we'll get some insight from another group as well. That's wonderful. Okay, so let me just welcome some folks that are out here that are on the event page who are watching us live. Let's see here. I'm just going to run through everybody who said they were going to be here. Stephanie Lowe, Jasmine, Jorge, Lado, Alfredo, Sandy, Solomon, Francesco. Awesome. Welcome, guys. And let's see who said good morning to us. We've got Betty. Welcome, Betty. Marlene, Nancy. Good to have you guys here. I'm really excited to get into this topic. And of course, last week we had I had some technical difficulties, and I think that every week somebody's having some kind of a technical difficulty, which is one of those frustrating things about working online. But, one of the things that I wanted to mention with that, I took a few notes, when I first got this book, and, that's one of the things that they tell you is it's like when you're communicating online, it's one of your biggest challenges is going to be that technical side of it, because of the fact that when we're communicating with people online, is a lot of times you lose that that nonverbal communication that you typically have when you're in person with somebody. So, that's one reason we really like doing these hangouts, is because you can actually hear the sound of our voice, you can see our body language and that sort of thing, and those are two really important parts of communication with people. And when you switch over to the digital world and we talk about, just texting and emailing and blogging and, doing PowerPoint presentations and, things like that, well, that communication barrier or there can be a little bit of a communication barrier because of the fact that our words can have so many different meanings. If you think about some of the words that, like, we think about, throw a word out there, guys. You can think of one that has like multiple
Bad.
meanings.
Bad. Inflection has a lot on the word bad, even.
Right. So if you think about all the words that have like multiple meanings, and then you think about the fact that we aren't, that so much of our communication is nonverbal, it's really easy to make the wrong message get portrayed out there in the world. And I don't know about you guys, but I've had this kind of happen to me before where, I'll be communicating with somebody and then all of a sudden it's like they're acting offended in some way. And you're not sure exactly what it is you said or what you think they think you thought. And so it can be like, a little bit frustrating because you, of course, as, me, and at least I am very, very much a very happy and positive and, just not outgoing. I'm just kind of a just real happy, positive person. And when I'm communicating with people, I'm always trying to get that across to them. But sometimes when you're trying to explain something, a concept or something along that lines, is that the other person may take it in a completely different way. We've experienced this in person-to-person situations where you'll say something and someone may take it the wrong way, because we have to consider that other people have that kind of everybody kind of sees things from their own perspective, right? And so when you're communicating, it's super important to hopefully understand what that other person's perspective is so that you can communicate in such a way that is going to get your point across in the way that you want and help them to understand it in a way that is beneficial to them. So anyway, guys, I wanted to just touch on some of the things that that we kind of are in this book at the beginning. It talks about how dealing with people is probably the biggest problem you face. These principles, of course, are even more important today because of the instant way that we communicate, and because of the fact that a large amount of our ability to communicate is nonverbal. Of course, I already said that, didn't I? Okay, so it's whether you're building a brand, negotiating a deal, talking to a colleague, coworker, team member, or investor, if you start with the wrong foundation, it's easy to send the wrong message, and it's really easy for your words to be miscommunicated. And then of course there's a lot of times where people actually will communicate in such a way that it's like they don't even realize you're a real person. And I don't know if you guys have experienced this before or not, but for me, I've had people send me really nasty messages over the silliest little things. Have you guys ever experienced that?
I haven't gotten, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
On my side, it looks like my mic is muted, so I'm sorry if I'm unmuted all the time, because I can't tell when I'm muted or unmuted today. But I haven't received nasty messages per se, but I've definitely been misunderstood sometimes. I will be the first to admit I've never been the best communicator in person, so communicating online has been even a bigger challenge for me. And it's so instantaneous. You have to really be careful online especially with reactions. You can't react to anything online because, I mean, if you typed out and pressed enter on everything you thought, you could be in big trouble probably pretty fast. That I think that's one of the problems with being online is that you're taught, a lot of companies are teaching some pretty bad communication skills, I think, and those, you know, those of us that have been around for a little while, and I'm learning every day, is that there's better ways to go about some things, and you have to be careful when you first come online because you can sort of get yourself in hot water before you realize what you're doing. So that's why uh, I love having friends like you. We can get together and discuss things like this and keep each other straight.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I was reminded of this guy who flipped out on me. You know, he had friended me on Facebook, and I send a new friend video usually, just introducing myself so they see who I am in person and get to know more about me as a personality. And he just got so mad at me. He's like, I didn't ask for your video, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay, it was just a friendly hello, you know, and I'm just still being friendly back. But then he just kept getting more angry, and I'm like, okay, this has nothing to do with me at all. It's him. So yeah, you just never know how somebody's going to react to something. So just remembering to not take it personally as well, you know. So that was funny.
Well, I had in a situation just the other day. I mean, more along the etiquette side more than anything is, you know, we're a lot of us, because we are in business and we're, you know, working from home, is that we have either marketer, entrepreneur, things like that, you know, on our profiles. Well, you know, and I know I'm not the only one that gets those private messages. It's the immediate, you know, basically join my business, here's my links and everything else. And sometimes I have not necessarily, I don't respond to them or whatever, but so I decided to go ahead and kind of politely, in my opinion, respond back to one of the guys and said, you know, because I used one of the lines that we heard not too long ago on a women's power series, where, you know, it's kind of like doing that to someone is kind of like seeing somebody across the street and walking up to him and saying, hi, you know, you want to get married, you know. And so I decided to go ahead and write back to this person and just say, hey, you know, I mean, we're not friends. I don't know you. You know, before you start slamming me with your opportunity. And the response back is, well, I saw on your profile that you're an entrepreneur, and so I thought you would be interested. And you know, so of course I responded back politely as well. I'm not looking for anything else to add additionally right now, you know, and but used another strategy about basically once again saying, you know, hey, I would just love to get to know you more before, you know, you do this. And there's probably a lot of people that are entrepreneurs that really find this a little bit of a turnoff. So I don't know how it's working for you. To which he responds back, well, it's working really well. I've got one of the biggest groups on Facebook, and he sends me another link. So I just wrote back, and I wished him well and said, you know, if things ever change for you, get in contact with me. But yeah, so sometimes, you know, in our enthusiasm, you know, because of what we're doing, I think, you know, we need to step back and I say, at least one of the strategies I'm learning is, if you do want to promote stuff like that, and even if you're not promoting, is get to know someone first. I mean, you know, look at their wall, maybe like or comment on their stuff. If you can follow them first, and then send a message and introduce yourself and establish a relationship before you start, and as we all know the term, start puking all over them. But yeah, I just thought that was kind of funny that he sent me a second link to try to convince me that because I'm an entrepreneur that, you know, that I need to pay attention to what he's wanting me to look at. So.
It's funny that that happens so frequently, and I think that the thing is people just they forget there's another person on the other side of that interaction, and I know, I mean, well, I don't know this for sure, but I think for the majority of people, like you were saying, Vicki, if you were walking across the street and you happen to run into somebody, you would not just instantly say, you know, check out my business. That's not the first thing that you would say to somebody if they were holding a briefcase and looked like an entrepreneur, right? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. But somehow or another, on the on the digital landscape, is that people they kind of lose their basic social skills. Somehow it gets dissipated for some reason. It doesn't make any sense to me why that happens, but it does. And for example, it's like this message that I just got recently was that somebody had subscribed to my email list, and they had attempted to unsubscribe, and for some reason they couldn't unsubscribe. I don't know what the problem was. Maybe it was my autoresponder, maybe it was because they didn't do the right thing. Who knows? But either way, instead of sending me a message and saying, hey, I tried to unsubscribe, I can't, I'm not interested anymore, can you take me off your list? I mean, just a very simple message. Instead, she sent me this message and called me a hillbilly pig who should never breed. I'm just like, what? Where did that come from? It's just like, it cracked me up. And if I had been a more sensitive person, I probably would have been like devastated by that comment, because it was just so mean. And I'm like, what in the world makes people do that? It boggles my mind. And of course I could have been like mad about that. I could have taken offense, and I could have responded to her in some horrible negative way and called her names and this and that and the other, but I knew that that was not, she obviously doesn't know me, so how could she possibly even come up with something that would make sense along that line? So I knew that that wasn't a personal hit to me. It was just her lashing out for some reason, and I think that people kind of get it in their head that, online somehow they can just say whatever and it'll be okay. It's no big deal because nobody can see you anyway, or they don't really see you as a real person for some reason. And it's crazy, really, in my opinion, how that happens. And I think in this book it talks about some different celebrities that made offhanded comments, and that got them into big trouble because they did it on the internet, and they got huge fines because of it. And it's like, well, when you think about it, the celebrities that are out there that have such huge amount of people that are watching them, they've got to be setting the example for everyone else. And because if they do something like that, then the average person who only has a few friends online, or only communicates with a few people online, then they would take that and be like, oh, well, Mel Gibson did this one thing, so it's perfectly okay for me to act that way too. So I think that, and that's another kind of important point in my thought, is that for those of us who communicate a lot online, who have more of a presence and a lot of followers, it's important for us to set the example of how you're supposed to behave online. What do you guys think about that?
That's a real good point there, Samantha. We can't just, follow, like monkey see, monkey do, follow other people and make their same mistakes. We do have to take a little bit of time to think through things before we get started communicating online. It's you can fall back to the old tried and true form method. I think that still works really well. We can't forget that we need to be building rapport with people before we start selling our wares, so to speak. And if you don't know the form method, that's what do you ask these people who you are learning to get to know. It's you think about something about their family. I think it's something about their occupation, and then also find out something about recreation, what they want, what they like to do with their spare time, and then after all that, then you might have an opportunity to present your message. And so that's what form stands for. And that's something I think pretty simple we can all we can all use. So
Yeah.
what do you think about that?
Well, I agree, Jason. I said, I think for a lot of times in just general conversation, we may really, if you're generally interested in other people, like we always hear saying, if you're generally interested in being interested instead of proving to be interesting, that when you do that and you have that kind of conversation with someone, that they'll walk away and think, wow, that was the best conversation I ever had. And one example I have from my nursing career is we had a physician, or I worked with a physician who quite narcissistic, and everything else, and it was a chore really to work with him. And Catherine may have come across some of these type physicians in her practice, and even it doesn't have to necessarily be a physician; it can be anyone else. But the thing is that there was one day the three of us, meaning the nurse anesthetist, my scrub tech, and myself, we all just kind of agreed that we were going to play along with this particular doctor, and everything that he said, we were just either going to agree to or laugh at or whatever it is. And when that particular surgery was over, that doctor left the room and said, "Oh my gosh, ladies, this has been the best case ever. Yeah, I've just enjoyed talking with y'all so much. This has been absolutely awesome." And of course, he walked out of the room, and we all went, "Oh my God, thank God it's over."
Oh, that's so funny, isn't it? That's so hysterical. Sorry.
But the point is that isn't that really what we're doing? Is that we're really wanting to focus on the other person, really to maybe help lift them up, and then once that relationship is established, whether it's either online like we're doing with a digital book or it's in person, then you can kind of weave it in. Like I heard someone else say, sometimes the best thing to do is to weave your message like fine threads of gold into the conversation. So, but anyway, yeah. So along the form line, that does work. But to try not to do it in necessarily like a true form where you're going down the list, but just to start practicing it enough so it becomes natural, whether it's online or offline. Mm-hmm. So that's a little tidbit from my history.
That's so funny that he said that when you guys were being all positive and just kind of being friendly with him, and rather than playing into his negativity. I think that's such a big thing right there, because like you were saying, he was like, "Oh, that was such a great time," and you didn't even realize that all this time prior to that, he was like the source of the negativity. And and here's something that's really interesting too. It's like with me, I've experienced this before, where I used to work in a salon where there was 8 other women. And one thing that I noticed was that when we would go in and somebody would start their complaining and weighing in a boo-boo, is that whole day would go that way, because one person would be like, me, 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 and then the next person would be like, me, 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 and this happened to me, and then and this person did that, and this and that and the other, and so it was like that place, like, it started out as a cool place to work because we were all ladies and we're goofing off and being silly, and days like that when you're talking about stuff that's just funny, it's great. But yet, when you have those days where everybody comes and complains, it like feeds on itself, and by the end of the day, you're feeling like 5 times or 10 times as drained as you would on a typical work day, because everybody's talking all this negative trash, and that always frustrated me. I eventually ended up leaving that salon, that being one of the main reasons, and but yet when I went and I worked in a warehouse for about 6 months, many years after that, and it was like one of the first places I worked that had numerous people, and I didn't have any say-so on the attitude that everybody was going to have, because of course when I have my own salon, I was like, look, we're going to keep a positive attitude no matter what, it was like the rule of my salon. And but when I worked in this warehouse, there was so many people that were so negative all the time, and I did kind of what you you did, Vicki. I went in with a positive attitude and said, you know, I'm going to be happy no matter what. And what I found over that period of 6 months is that by the time that I had left, by the time I was going to be leaving, I saw a huge change in that warehouse just by being that positive influence, you know, and that's something that I think everybody should be very aware of, is that even if you have an environment that's negative, when you start adding your positive to it, and you're purposefully positive, as that can change, it can change a lot of people very, very, very effectively, is kind of my thought process on that. But let me just add a couple comments. We've got Marlene has a comment that she posted on the page. She says, I have discovered that if I put myself in another's mindset through listening or reading their perspectives, I can communicate with them and understand their needs rather than mine. You know, that is such an important thing, you know, particularly when we are talking about being in the network marketing industry or in the home business industry, and we're trying to get people to join us and be in our business, is that, you know, one thing we have to realize is that not everybody is going to be the right fit for what we're doing, and the best way to recognize who's going to be right and who isn't going to be right is actually to have that conversation with them and find out what is it they're trying to accomplish in their life. You know, what do they want to accomplish, and is that even going to fit in with what you're doing? It may not, you know. And, you know, one thing I wanted to mention really quick before I pass it over to somebody else is, you know, we've all heard the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But on one of our mastermind calls a while back, you know, our leader of our call, he said, you know, there's an addition that you can add on to the end of that, and it's you know, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Dang it, now I forget how he said it, but it was basically, if you were in their shoes. So think about it one step further. If, you know, because a lot of times we think we know what that other person would want, but yet you've got to be in their shoes to really understand, you know, what it is that they want. So do unto others as you would have them do unto you if you were in their place, or if you were in their shoes, and that kind of gives you a different perspective. Jump out.
Am I on? Can you hear me? Yeah. I think that's fantastic advice, and also keep in mind that you never know what somebody else's shoes are. So you can think you're putting yourself in their shoes and you have no idea what's really going on behind the scenes. But another thing, and to bring it back to the book a little bit, is, or more a piece of the book specifically, is where it's talking about President Lincoln wrote this message to the general, and I'm not going to get all the names and everything right. I'm historically challenged, but I read it. And evidently the guy blew it. He had the people where he could have attacked them, and he was kind of new at his appointment, and so he didn't act immediately, and then I think it was General Lee wound up getting his people across the river or something, and it really messed, like they had a chance to get them, but they didn't act fast, so they got away. And President Lincoln wrote this letter to the general expressing that he was, it was very eloquent the way he wrote it. He had such a way with words, but, you know, expressing that, you know, pretty much you blew it. And but then they found that letter after Lincoln was dead, like he never sent the letter. And so just as you were saying, Samantha, about being positive, sometimes being positive is not being negative too. I mean, you can be like actively positive, or you can just be positive by not injecting the negative. And in that case, and I want to bring up a point, because I think it's important to write that stuff down. Like if you do have feelings like that, don't try to just sweep them under the rug, but go ahead and write them down. You don't necessarily have to send the email or send the letter or, you know, speak the words to somebody, but if you're feeling something, go ahead and write it out, delete it, write it on paper, burn it, whatever you need to do. But it's better to speak it in some way so that it's not festering inside, I guess. So I thought that was a really what he said to the general was, I could see anyone sending that letter, but he chose not to send it because he knew that it would affect his ability to lead from that point on. And he figured, well, he's already messed up. Me adding to the pile is not going to help any. And sometimes that's true. Don't add to somebody's pile because you don't know what they're going through. It's very easy to get online and hide a lot of, nobody puts well, some people put all their stuff out there, but most people don't put all their stuff out there, so you don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. And just be careful not to, you might think you're helping, but just be careful not to put more on somebody, too much on somebody's plate. Oh, hush.
Yeah, we have to assume that's some good points. We have to assume that that other people might not see things with the clarity that we do from our perspective, and that's a good example. And I think a lot of our commanders have probably read that and learned from that. They're might not be down there on the battlefield and know the exact circumstances of what's going on. So take other people's point of views into considerations. Definitely. With communicating via email, there's a lot of little tricks. I think with my online business, what I do is for some of my clients, I'll get emails where they are either asking me a couple different questions, or I have to send them one where I'm asking them a couple different questions, and I end up having to do my best to separate the questions so they see each one individually, and it's not just one big ball of words, because inevitably what they do is they end up talking about all kinds of other stuff when they respond, and they don't end up answering the one or two questions that I really need answered. So I have to be really specific as to what I want what the information is that I want. Otherwise, I end up a lot of times with 10, 11 emails just trying to get the details on one particular issue. So it's interesting. This stuff can really help us out, help ease our day, help us to really accomplish more in our day and make it more enjoyable too. So for me, I sometimes I don't think I have a really that I'm really all that great at communicating. So I'm looking for any strategy or any tip that I can find, and I know there's tons of them in this book. So I'm looking forward to all the chapters to come. What do you think,
Okay.
Sandy?
Yeah, I was going to say if anybody else wants to jump out real quick before I jump back in again. Okay, all right, well, I'll jump in here. I wanted to read a couple of things out of the book, because since we're kind of talking about these exact things, I underlined some things in here that I feel are really important points. And, one thing it says in here, as he was kind of talking about this, the story with Lincoln and General Lee, or General Meade, excuse me. He said, we are self-preserving creatures who are instinctively compelled to defend, deflect, and deny all threats to our well-being, not the least of which are threats to our pride. And, I think that that's something that it's a core thing that we have to remember, is that, when we're out there and we're talking to people, is that's why he talks about don't criticize or condemn people, because the first thing that's going to happen is they're going to defend. I mean, it's like a natural instinct. And one of the things that I've noticed with some of the really powerful and influential leaders online is that they want mention somebody's name when they're stating a a specific incident that happened so that they can teach a lesson to people. They won't call that person out and say, you're the person who did this. They typically will say, this is the situation that happened. I'm not going to call this person's name out because I know it was a mistake, and that's okay. We all make mistakes, but this is how you avoid this in the future. And I think that is super powerful, because you can teach a lesson without naming a person and causing them to be the butt of your criticism. And and when you kind of think about that in terms of your everyday interactions, is that yeah, there may be people in your life that are screwing up in many different ways. I mean, that just happens. People make mistakes. It's part of being human. And then the other thing is, you've got to realize that they're doing the best that they can from their perspective in the world. They don't know the same things that you know, and you don't know the same things that they know. And when you call them out and you criticize them for it, then they automatically are going to defend themselves. And then it was also talking about, it says, when we attempt to use criticism to win an argument, to make a point, or to incite change, we are taking 2 steps backwards. People can be led to change. People can be led to change as horses can be led to water, but deprecation will rarely inspire the results you are aiming for. We are not merely speaking of public disclosure. This is just as true in private conversation. Then it goes on to say, the moment you use a medium to criticize, the subject of your criticism is compelled to defend, and when another is defensive, there is little you can say to break through the barriers he has raised. Everything you say is then filtered through skepticism, or worse, complete incredulity. In this way, critical comments act like invisible boomerangs. They return on the thrower's head. And I think that's super important to realize, is that when you lash out at other people, it instantly puts you in a position where you have less influence, because people, they become distrustful of you because they're afraid of what you might say to them, and they like you less because how dare you call me out? I make a mistake. I'm only human, I mean, things like that. And so you got to kind of remember that the best way to influence people is not to criticize and condemn them, but it's actually to give them positive feedback on the things that they are doing right. I mean, in a situation where you have somebody that isn't doing what they ought to be doing, instead of saying, you're not doing this right, you're not doing that, you should do this, you messed up on that, is to instead say, hey, you did a great job on this thing the other day. That was awesome. Can you keep on doing that? And and that's one very powerful way to get that person to refocus their energy too, because if they're always doing all this crap over here that's messing everything up, and you start drawing attention to the things they're doing right, because of the fact that people have that strong desire to be approved of, to have that to have people like them, and to get praise and be appreciated, that when you take the time to recognize things that people do right, they will instinctually want to do more right. Those are my thoughts. But go ahead and jump in, and then here, before we close out, I want to go ahead and read this whole next section here on pages 10 and 11, because it has some really important points that I think that we should definitely dig into.
Well, Samantha, whether we're not whether we're adults, but even as adults, we have to remember that inside of everybody, there's still probably that little kid that started kindergarten or first or second grade that, would depending on how they behave, they were going to get that gold star or maybe the green star, those kind of things. And I think what you just said about, all of us, it's natural for humans to want to be uplifted and praised and things like that, instead of like thrown under the bus. I had a situation the other day, being an admin of one of the groups, is that someone had a concern. So, they private messaged me and wanted to know if I could, kind of counsel or talk with this other person. And I said that, I would be happy to do that. And then here came a message that says, please don't throw me under the bus. I said, I would never do that. I would never throw you under the bus for, voicing your concern. And then of course, then I did the same thing with the other person, led off with, how awesome they were doing, but however, there had been someone had contacted me and was just kind of curious about stuff. And it's because in this one particular group, they're not doing things the same way we are in another group. And so it was a little confusing to this person. But, you know, the bottom line is, for me, I know we all want to be uplifted and we all want to be praised. And, you know, somewhere in our houses, on our refrigerators, whatever it is, I'm sure there's that little invisible, that little thing that where we can, say, okay, here's my gold star for today or whatever, and I gave a gold star, those kind of things. So I think that's always something to remember, is that, deep down, that's who we are, is we're creatures who want love and crave attention, and want to be uplifted and validated. So, but anyway, so that's my other little 2 cents.
Yeah, it's great points, because it's like, where we focus our attention is where the energy goes, and if we're focusing on what somebody's doing wrong and pointing that out, they're just going to close up more and not really be able to feel like they can do better without being like constantly watched or something. And then if we're pointing out what they're doing right, they get that, it just gives them that push to do more right and feel better, feel like included and not, berated upon. So it's just a whole different energy that you're going with yourself and with the other person and the whole team of people who may be involved. Just where you're putting that focus on is so super important for the energy of everybody involved. So.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I always notice the energy levels of these people, of speakers that you see online. I mean, really makes a huge impact on their videos when they just increase that energy level just a notch or so. And while you were talking, Sandy, I was reminded of, I think I'm not sure which author now. There's so many good authors who have been interested in lately, but where there was the example of the puppy dog, how the puppy dogs make friends. They just have such a burst of energy, and they're just so happy to be there, and you can't ignore it. So I just saw it, I envisioned that, and that kind of brings a smile to my face. So thanks. Yeah.
My dog is my biggest teacher. She has a way, everybody remarks about my dog and says that she has a way of making everybody feel like they're the most special person in the world. So I inspire to try to be like my dog.
Okay, can you hear me? All right. Thought my computer was freezing up on me there for a second. Okay, so let's read through this section real quick. It's only a page and a half long or so. Kind of helps bring this chapter together, because it kind of summarizes a lot of what we've been talking about. So let's see here. Okay. It says focus on improving yourself instead of others, because of course when you improve on yourself, you naturally lead the way for other people to improve themselves. And it says, okay, so here's the first point. Shift your use of media from a spirit of expose and objection to a spirit of encouragement and exhortation. There is nothing wrong with informing your friends and fans, even about the things they may want to avoid, but the spirit of your information is key. Are you sharing information because you have an axe to grind? This sort of communication is better reserved for the safety of a trusted colleague's couch. Or with your spouse at home, nobody's gonna hear it. It's okay to vent your frustration, just don't do it publicly or with somebody who you think is gonna make it public, right? Even if people are already on your side, bragging and whining don't make them closer. If anything, such behavior makes them question whether they can trust you with their own mistakes and musings. Do we want to talk a little bit about each one of these little sections? Or do we want to just read through them?
Read through them, and then we can comment, maybe.
Okay. Okay. All right. So the next one. Okay. So resist bad mouthing as a differentiation strategy. Its long-term effect is far more harmful than helpful. In a global economy, you will never know when your greatest competitor will become your greatest collaborator. What will you do when the best road to business growth goes through someone with whom you have already burned the relational bridge? Excuse me. Competition is healthy and should be respected. Collaboration is critical and should be protected. Okay, the next one. Make your messages meaningful by removing your agenda. Whether you are tweeting big news to a large fan base or updating a handful of board members, it's wise to remember that no one wants a barrage of what's important to you. Above all, the recipients of every bit and bite of your communication want value. If all you do is fill their ears, inboxes, iPhones with descriptions of your latest problem or biggest gripe, they won't listen for long. There's enough positive communication available to let others' downbeat dogma fill our minds. Next one. Calm yourself before communicating to another. When you are put off, the first 5 minutes are usually the most volatile. If you can train yourself to stuff the knee-jerk response, you will save yourself hours of backpedaling, back-scratching, and brown-nosing down the road. While we all have our moments of indiscretion, there is little worse than a private indiscretion gone public. Save yourself the small trouble and potentially extensive dilemma by taking a step back before spouting something you might come to reject or regret. Okay. Okay, so I just want to read a couple more things here. We'll finish out this chapter and then we can talk about it. Okay, so while it is difficult at times to downplay our right to speak freely, a quick scan through history will remind you that the greatest influencers are those who held their tongue, swallowed their pride when the tide of negative emotion was arising, and instead let brevity, humility, and wisdom say far more than a critical tirade ever could. And one thing it was talking about here is he says that perhaps there is no more memorable example than the prolific British writer G.K. Chesterton's reply to an invitation by the Times to write an essay on the subject, What's Wrong with the World? Chester's response was, Dear Sirs, I am. Sincerely, G.K. Chesterton. And then we end the chapter with this one big thing right here. It says, if I am the problem with the world and you are too, then we can stop worrying about who is right and get on with the work of making our world better. Bury your boomerangs and your words will forge a much quicker path to progress. So that's a lot to talk about there, but I wanted to make sure we got that covered in this discussion. Jump in, anybody?
Who's jumping? Somebody jump.
Okay, I'll jump real quick if you guys don't have something. Okay, on this section where it was talking about calm yourself before communicating with another, that's a super important one right there, because, we all have situations where somebody says something to us that we don't like. Like, for instance, that email message that I received from that woman that called me a hillbilly pig who shouldn't be breeding. And when I first got that, I was like, what? And I was kind of upset about it. I'm like, how dare she, And I could have just instantly responded back with, how dare you, blah, 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 and go on about how horrible she was for saying such a nasty thing to me. But, I realized that if I did that, I wasn't going to get anywhere, and granted, I may not ever have anything to do with her in the future anyway because she's not interested in me, but I'm certainly not going to respond in a negative way because, maybe think about what people are actually feeling. I knew she wasn't, actually mad at me. I mean, all I did was send her an extra email or two. And so when she sent that message to me, I was like, okay, take a breather. I took a breather. I stepped back from my computer for a little while, and then I thought about, okay, what's the most appropriate way to respond? And I just responded to her as if she had sent me a message that said, hey, do you mind taking me off your list? And and just by making that differentiation of, I could have been negative back to her and then caused a big argument and caused her to distrust me and caused her to be more upset with me or whatever. Instead, I just said, hey, I'm sorry that this happened to you. I didn't realize it was happening. Thanks for letting me know. I'm going to take care of it right away. And, that, basically left it at that. And the thing is that when we do that, we step back and we realize that, not everybody knows how to communicate in a positive manner, and the best way to combat that is to be the one that sets the example, right? So that's my thought.
That's a great point, Samantha. Although I hope you wrote what you wanted to say to her and then deleted it or something, because I'm sure that brought up a lot of stuff inside of you that you probably wanted to say. So go ahead and say it, burn it, or delete it, or something. Delete's a great button. But the other thing that I really loved that you brought up was taking your agenda out of it. So many people in this industry try to stick completely to email or text messages or something. They're petrified of picking up the phone and speaking to someone, and it's almost always because they have an agenda, and they don't know. They're nervous about talking to someone to try to present their whatever they're trying to present. If they would just pick up the phone and talk to someone like a friend and have a conversation with them, it gets about 500 pounds lighter. It really does. So I think taking the agenda out, was trying to think of some of the other ones. Maybe we should have stopped between each one. I don't know. I was afraid we were going to run out of time. But this book is just, it's not about, there's a big difference between influencing someone and trying to manipulate someone. Please don't confuse those two things and have it put you off of a book like this, because there's so much gold in this book. And I'll be honest, when I first saw the title, I was actually gifted the first book, not the digital age book, but the very, the first one. And when I read the title, I was so put off by it. I thought, well, gosh, I don't need to manipulate people. I don't want to manipulate people. But that is not what this book is about. It's about learning how to communicate with people, which is not something we're taught. Think about it. When you go to school, what are you taught to do? You're taught to just shut up, sit there and do what you're told. You're not taught how to communicate with people at all. So we have to learn how to do these things. I was a single child, so I didn't, have the experience of having brothers and sisters to try to learn to communicate with. But these are really good skills. So just don't confuse influence and manipulation, because it's totally different things.
Yeah, that's true, Vicki. If I could just say something real quick, like what you were just mentioning, it's by word. If you're trying to get someone to do something, influence them through words, they call it coercion, and that's not really what you're really trying to do here. You're just trying to make new friends and communicate better. I was in particular talking about this one example about calming yourself before communicating with others. I learned a good tip at an event with Sandy a little while back from a very intelligent guy. His suggestion was to step back and just ask yourself, take a breath is what take a deep breath. First of all, that was the big thing. Take a deep breath, and then ask yourself, what is it that you really want? What is it you're looking to actually convey or communicate? what need is it that you need filled, rather than just reacting to whatever stimulus has just happened. I thought that was a really good trick, and it's kind of helped me and to condense all my emotions in a very critical point in time down to just what is it that I'm really looking for here. Okay, my emotions, my feelings may have been hurt, but I'm not really interested in hashing that out. What is it that I really want? What progress do I need to make vacation? So I think that trick can help us to figure that out, and not cause a bigger problem, out of something small, perhaps. So I don't know. What do you think about that?
Good one.
I like what you said also, Catherine, about if you're calling somebody with an agenda to like get in your business, or communicating with somebody in that way. When I was brand new and didn't really know, I would get super nervous because it was just like, well, I have to get this person in, or and it doesn't work like that at all. It's so true. If you call them as just a friend and to see where they're at and what are they looking for, it's such a much different experience and much better, even if they don't, join your business or, interested in what you're doing. Then at least they remember that you were talking to them like a human and you really cared about them as a person. What were they looking for? What do they want? What do they need in their life? It's not about, let me call them and sell them on this thing. It's like such a different energy. So yeah, it's a great point.
Definitely, Sandy. Definitely. I get so excited when I meet a new person and cultivate a new relationship. Most of the time, I'm just so excited about meeting them and learning about them that I forget to even mention what it is I do, or anything about myself. A lot of times I come away knowing more about them than I think I've told them about myself. So, and I don't know if anyone else has experienced that too, where you have this great, you meet somebody, it wasn't something you expected, you had a great short little conversation where you learned quite a bit about them, but then you come away going, gosh, I should have got their number, or I don't, I want to keep that relationship going forward, and I think sometimes I just get so caught up in the excitement of actually meeting a new friend that I forget all that other stuff. So I don't know about you guys, but
Yeah, I've gotten where people, when people ask me what I do, I say I don't want to talk about what I do. I love coming away from a conversation knowing more about them than they do about me.
One thing I wanted to also add to what you were saying, Jason, you're talking about, what feelings are you trying to get across? I think another great thing to think about is, what is that person who has, sent you that negativity? What is it they're really trying to get across to you, And because I think a lot of times it is just a matter of people just don't know how to communicate effectively, and they think that the only way that they can do it is by, being criticizing people, or, calling them out, or just being mean in general. We see this a lot of times in many different situations where, particularly we see a lot in, in parenting situations. They think that the only way to get their kids to do what they want is to constantly berate them for the things they aren't doing correctly. And, and so when I got that email message, I thought about, I'm not going to take this personally because obviously I'm not what she's saying. And two, what is it she was really upset about? Because obviously she tried to unsubscribe from my list. She couldn't do it. She kept getting messages from me. She didn't like my messages for whatever reason. And, and so just kind of remembering to see things from the other perspective and try and dig down into what it is they really are trying to communicate. Because when you can get at that core desire, then you may actually be able to win a friend that way. They may be mad at you when they first send you some message, but you want them to come away from that interaction with you with a positive feeling. And and that's kind of what I was sitting there thinking, is obviously she's upset with me, and I did not purposely try and offend her in any way, and I want to make sure that what she wanted, her needs were taken care of, and I just wanted to communicate that with her. So that's important. Margaret just posted on the event page. Let me just jump over here and read what she wrote. And by the way, welcome, Margaret. I just saw that you jumped on here with us. Recently, she says she recently paid for something that she did not get, and when she attempted to let the seller know, was totally unsuccessful because she was so busy letting me know that I clicked the wrong link, only link on the page, and ended up with without the product I paid for, and simply wished her well. I'm glad that you were able to kind of keep it a positive conversation between you and her, but it's sad that you made this purchase from that person, and because she's so caught up on her own agenda that she didn't even care about your needs. And I think that that's a big thing, for all of us out here that are on the internet trying to do business in some way, shape, or form, is to keep your customer. And of course, your customer is anybody that you're wanting to buy your product, join your business, be involved with you in any way, shape, or form, is to keep their needs at the top of the list. Just like we've talked about throughout this whole thing, is to be very aware of what it is that is going on with the other person, because they're the most important in this conversation. They're the most important in your communications. It's not about you. It's about everybody else out there, because if you're just on the internet just going me, 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 nobody's listening to you anyway. So that's my thought.
Yeah.
Let's see, where are we at? Oh, we're already at the top of the hour. Does anybody want to add anything before we wrap it up for today?
Just thank you, everyone, for coming and all the wonderful comments. And we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thanks for coming, everybody, and have a great rest of the weekend. I think also, yes, we got to realize, I think, that we're kind of we're top percenters here, top 1%ers here, looking to improve ourselves, improve our communications. And so there are a lot of people out there are not they're just not up to date with these skills and strategies. So we have to have the patience and not get frustrated, and realize maybe they in your examples, people are reacting, and they may not be able to really tell us exactly what they want, and we might need to dig a little deeper and find out exactly what their core needs are, like you were mentioning, Samantha. So have a great weekend, guys. Really great to see you all, and thanks for having me on.
And I agree with Jason. Thank everybody for coming out and participating and writing comments on the wall. And I'll concur with Jason on that too, is that when we step up and decide to improve ourselves, it really is up to us to be the example to other people, and to love them where they're at, but for us to try to be the example as much as possible, and help show them, if they're interested in how they can either improve their lives or whatever they want to do. But it really is, it's just like a parent with a child. The parent is supposed to be the example to the child and show them the way they should go. So anyway, guys, y'all have a great weekend, and it's been fun, and we look forward to you next time.
Yeah. Sandy, did you have a final word? Did you already say a final something? Did you want to?
Sorry, my screen keeps going black, and then I don't know if I'm here or not. Anyway, yeah, it was a great discussion, and thanks for everyone's points and for the engagement in the group on the wall as well. And I look forward to next week. Have an awesome weekend, everybody.
Awesome, awesome, guys. So thank you for hanging out with us. You know, this has been a wonderful conversation, and of course, you can meet up with us again next week. You can find us at SaturdayMorningMastermind.com. That's where we always will have this discussion. So you know, when you're ready to jump in with us, we'll be on live again next Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern at SaturdayMorningMastermind.com. And if you have not already joined our community, jump over to mindsetmasterycollective.com. That is our Google Plus community, and of course you can find both of those links in the description or on this event page. And if you haven't already gotten a copy of the book, like I said at the beginning, you can get one for like $4.52 from Amazon. If you click that link that's over there in the description. So guys, have an awesome, amazing, and wonderful, glorious weekend, and we'll see you again next week on Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now.